Hi, I am Carrie Buss, and I am here today on behalf of PERC, or Parents and Educators Raising Our Community, to welcome you. I am really excited about this program tonight. I have heard at the core present probably more times than I care to admit, and it has been a great experience. And I know you guys are going to enjoy and get so much of value out of tonight. Beth Probst is the founder and CEO of At the Core, and she has crafted this evening of tips and tools to share with you to help you prepare your student for high school and the road ahead. We are also fortunate to be joined by Dublin Kaufman High School counselor, Kevin Patton, yay, and Dublin City Schools coordinator of K-12 career and experiential learning, Christy Bennett. Tonight's program is being video recorded and will be available on PERC's YouTube channel by the end of the week. You can find this recording, links to future and past PERC programs, and opportunities to get involved with PERC on our website, www.percdublin.org. And then I'll go ahead and turn it over to Beth.
Awesome. Can you hear okay? Where's my peanut gallery? Awesome. Thank you. All right, so you guys are in for, I hope, a treat tonight. It helps me to know something about you, but again, just to reintroduce you to the folks that you're going to see and hear from tonight. Again, Kevin Patton, who is a counselor here at Kaufman, and Christy Benny, who is all things career K through 12. Helping our kids, and I will tell you that is a unique role. That is not a role that you see in a lot of districts. So you're going to hear me say this many times tonight. You are incredibly lucky Dublin families. You have amazing options and amazing resources and support. My name is Beth Probst, and I'd like to get to know something about you. So quick show of hands. If you are here tonight, raise your hand if you are here tonight for your oldest child who is now heading to high school. Yep, it's like I've done this before, yes. And let's do a quick show of hands. How many of you are Kaufman families? Hands up if your kids will go to Kaufman. How many of you are Scioto families? Awesome. And Jerome families. Excellent, thank you. And anybody got a kiddo in high school today? Yay, okay, awesome. Okay, so again, my name is Beth Probst. We're gonna go through a lot tonight. My job, well, I'll first start with a thank you to the PERC family and the leadership, especially Carrie Buss and the leadership team who helped make this happen tonight. She recognized the need to support parents at this very important time as your child gets ready to transition from what you've known, those middle school years, to the great unknown, these high school years, and all those options that our kids have. So thank you to PERC for providing this opportunity. This is built to support parents. Your kids are very well supported. And in fact, I would suggest to you that you attend any and everything that your district, that Dublin provides to you. I will put up a list of many of those dates and details and meetings and open houses and virtual events. You'll want to participate in as many of those as possible. The idea is that thinking ahead, looking ahead, is going to cause less stress because you will have heard it this first time. But I promise you, I have watched hundreds of parents take in what I'm about to share with you, and often their eyes get a little bit big. Has anyone heard this program before? I know Carrie has, yeah. So just promise me that you'll take it in and you'll understand that this is the first time you're hearing it. It's not the only time. I'm going to send you links to everything that we talk about tonight so that you can take that time and that step to read more about the ones that are of interest to you. We will send that follow-up email. It will have all that good stuff in it. We also my organization at the core, does several deep dive, I would call them kind of complementary or in alignment with the things that you might hear from your district. So I'm going to put up a list of those. We'll repeat this program, we do a money program, we do an ACT, SAT, PSAT program, we do a college credit plus program. Most of these are free. Some of them have a small ticket price of $29 to help support the process of building and delivering that information and having the Zoom platform. So we try to keep those very accessible to families. We also have a recorded session about the TOLS opportunities, TOLS Career Technical Center, that we will send to you. We do recordings of all those as well. Important dates for you as a Dublin parent. Make a note of these. So a lot of you have the PowerPoint. If you don't have the PowerPoint in hand, I see somebody taking photos, that's great. We're going to send you this PowerPoint tomorrow in tomorrow's follow-up email. So you don't need to panic and write down and rush to get these written down. It will come to you tomorrow. Okay? So the key ones are that Emerald Campus Open House. If you marked your calendar for that and did nothing else, I would tell you that is worth your weight in gold, worth your time to go and visit the Emerald Campus and understand the options that exist there. Certainly the 8th grade parent nights at each of the 3 high schools. The whole idea that your scheduling forms are going to be due for 9th grade classes in early February. I'll talk a little bit about College Credit Plus. Each year that your student wants to participate in that, you do need to turn in an intent to participate form. So I only share this concept with you. It's unusual for a freshman to do College Credit Plus, but I just want you to know each year that's something that you're going to need to have on your radar. I usually tell parents, just stick a rolling reminder for February 1st of every year to think about getting that CCP intent form to your counselor. And in Dublin Parent University, you can look for some things from the upcoming PERC programming. You can see there's 3 great ones coming up. Carrie, I actually had to look at that Whistling Vivaldi book. It's next on my list to read. It sounds awesome. Did you read it yet?
Not yet.
It sounds like a great one, the premise behind it. So more programs coming from PERC. Great stuff. Again, very appreciative. And as an Olentangy parent, I'll be honest, jealous of PERC and the things that you do to support the Dublin community. Olentangy doesn't have anything like that. Okay, are you ready? I need a yes. I need a thumbs up from my peanut gallery. Ready? Okay. All right. So you have a rising freshman. It is a super exciting time. I'll confess, I'm a parent of 2. They are both in college now. So I have a college freshman, which is a whole different experience. The phone calls home from your college freshmen are a little different than the ones from your high school freshmen. You'll be there soon. And then I also have a kiddo who is in his last year at the University of Cincinnati, but he's on a work rotation right now. So we just moved him to North Carolina this past weekend. So I'm a mom just like you. I can remember very vividly the first transition of my oldest child from 8th to 9th. So I'm right there with you, and I know I put myself back in that spot to remember how you feel. There is a lot of change that happens during these 4 years. There's a lot of, I won't call it a linear maturity change. It often has its little bumps and ups and downs, and it feels more like a roller coaster, so it's a fun ride. It does move quickly. You know it's different today for our kids than it was for us. Our high school experience bears some resemblance to what our students will experience, but it's pretty different for our kids. You just don't know how it's different. And that's what this will do a lot to kind of fill you in on how things are different. And I really am very honored and touched to get to share this peek around the corner of what's ahead during those high school years with you. Follow-up email, I mentioned that already. Oh, one quick one. You guys are so smart. There is a sign-in sheet on the table. If you didn't pre-register for tonight, this follow-up email that I'm telling you about can't get to you because we wouldn't have your email address. So if you didn't tell us that you're here and let us know that you're here, then just jot down your email address so that we can get that email to you tomorrow. At the core, we are based in Powell, I told you already. Olentangy, I'm an Olentangy parent, there's about a dozen of us. We do different things associated with career planning, educational path planning. We are very active on social media. We produce a newsletter that thousands of families read every Sunday morning. The genesis or gist, or the main message I would want you to know, is that if your kiddo thinks about who they are kind of that self-assessment element. You'll hear me say this a couple times tonight. What's important to your child, who they are, what their strengths are. Then that can play into thinking about careers that can be a good fit for them. Then that can play into the final step, which is the educational path planning. The idea that, okay, if I know this about myself and I have my eye on these kinds of careers toward the end of high school, then I can know what steps I need to take from an education perspective to move forward to success in that kind of career area. So that's the idea. And the second main message is using these high school years well can be the key that unlocks the door to confident and clear decisions at the end of high school. And that's what we want. So again, thinking about your student and making those strong choices at the end of high school. The second bullet is the key. Your child is going to articulate things about what they find interesting, what they find to be their strengths, what they struggle with, what they prefer when given a choice. I prefer to sleep in until 10 a.m., right? And that's what they would all say. But in some, yeah, I'm kidding, but that is a preference. So it's good for them to articulate those things, use those years of high school to explore, to engage with their interests, to try things on and decide whether or not that's a fit for them. So if they've been thinking, I think I want to be an engineer, and they take some PERC courses, or I think I want to be a dentist, and then they have a chance to go to a camp or a class, stick their fingers in someone's mouth, and smell what a dentist's office smells like, and they say, uh-oh, I want to be a dentist, right? I'd rather that they figure that out through those experiences in high school and have that opportunity to redirect. That's what those years of high school can be. They can really be a time when a student thinks about what's important to them. Heading to college without a strong sense, a direction of where they're heading, can be troublesome. It can turn a 4-year degree into 4.5 years, 5 years, or more, and that's not what we're thinking. So, here we go. So I just needed to set that stage, that remember, it's our kiddo who's heading to high school and will sit in that seat and take those classes. So we can guide and we can influence, but it's them that really needs to be the one that steps up and makes those confident decisions. So our agenda today, we are going to talk through the 4 years of high school in a timeline, kind of, I'll whip you through the years of high school very quickly so you'll see what key events will happen. I do need to talk also about our changing role as parents. So we will experience some things with our maturing student, and if you've got a couple of ideas or tips inside your tool belt, it will help you guide them through those years as smoothly as can be for both of you. We will also talk about academics. I've got a chunk in the middle. It's a good-sized chunk of time where I am going to, and I'm going to practice this. Are you ready? I'm going to count. You have seven major options academically in Dublin. You have honors classes, AP, IB, and I'm going to explain these. College Credit Plus, Toll's Career and Technical Center, the academies at Emerald Campus, and amazing electives inside your high school. That's 7. That's 7. What I want you to know is that there is plenty of information available about all of those options. You have this beautiful runway of time. You don't have to make decisions today about those 7. But as you begin to kind of collect that knowledge, it will help you prepare to make those good decisions. So, that's one of the big differences between high school that our kids experience and high school that you perhaps experienced. My high school, suburban Indianapolis, we didn't have AP classes. There was no option for that. It was just take the next class. And we did have a career center, so that was an option. But today our kids have so many more. We'll talk a little bit, this much, about ACT and SAT, just so that you kind of have a little window into what that is and how that can play into your students' high school years. We will talk a little bit about the options that come after high school. I have mentioned already a couple of times transitioning to college. There's plenty of options. College doesn't guarantee anything, and it costs a lot of money. So probably ought to understand what all of our options are at the end of high school. And then logistical questions like lockers and schedules and those, especially like how do I pick up somebody for a doctor's appointment, all of that will be handled beautifully by your schools during that transition. That's not what we're going to talk about tonight. Are we good? Okay, good. Okay, awesome. So here we go. This is next year for all of us. With a freshman, those first few weeks are just going to be that acclimation. It's that classic changing schools. It's the same thing, right? How do I get from point A to point B? Where is this classroom? I'm stumbling around here. I'm not sure how to take care of my lunch. I don't know where to go when I need to get picked up for that dentist appointment the first week of school. That's easy. That gets through. Academic basics are getting underway. There aren't a ton of choices that your student has that first year of high school. They are, of course, going to take an English, a math, a social studies, a science. They may be taking a health. They may take a PE. They may take another elective. If they're college bound, or interested, they may be taking a world language. Those are the basics. And I'm going to show you an example of a sample schedule in just a few minutes when we get to that academic section. But it's the basics. It is probably the easiest academic year. I want you to think of the years of high school as sort of stepping up like a stair step each year of high school. They're gonna get naturally a little bit harder. They should get a little bit harder to kind of meet the academic challenge needed for that student. So if a student is heading to college, and I'm going to talk about that because the vast majority of Dublin students continue on to some sort of post-secondary education. That's just a numeric fact, so I'll put that out on the table. College is harder. So if our students are taking more challenging coursework through the years of high school, they are preparing themselves for that natural next step of college. They may have classes with juniors and seniors. Kevin, I don't know if this is very common. Is that common that a freshman could be in with a junior or senior?
I wouldn't say it's extremely common. There's majority of your students that first year are going to be freshmen and sophomores, but we do have students that take advanced courses prior to high school, and they might find themselves with some upperclassmen, or sometimes an upperclassman waits till senior year to take PE or health, and they kick themselves for it, but then they're stuck with all freshmen.
So it could be PE or health. It could be a student who's younger, who's accelerated in a subject, especially like a math, or perhaps an elective. Does that ever happen?
Classes, things like that.
Perfect. So I only mentioned that. I remember my daughter, when she was a freshman, she was taking a creative writing class, an elective class, and there were seniors in her class. And she came home that first day and reported, kind of shocked, "Mom, there are seniors in my class." And it was, she noted how differently they interacted with the teacher than what she was used to. They were so much more mature. They used some different language, perhaps, than she used or was used to using as a middle schooler. It became really kind of a point of understanding what that mid-stage classroom and the value of that can be. So don't be surprised by that if that's the case. Opportunity to get involved. I'm going to show you a list in just a moment of all the clubs that exist inside each of the 3 high schools. It's unbelievable. There's plenty of opportunity to get involved. Time management and organization. If you're at all like me and you stand in the organizer section of Target and look at all the paper planners and try to project which one your child might like best, perhaps just spoken from expertise here, if you choose that for your child and they very kindly and nicely as a firstborn child say, "Thank you, Mom, for getting me that awesome binder," and then you find it 6 weeks later crumpled in the bottom and you're sad and mad that they didn't use it, here's my tip. If time management and organization, whatever method they are using, if it's working, don't muddy the water. If it's working, let it work. If it's not working, and you have evidence that it's not working, then you come alongside them and you say, let's tweak this. You need to tweak something about the way that you're managing assignments, you're managing deadlines, you're managing projects. Things in high school often get a little bit less about this is due tomorrow and more about this is due 2 weeks from now. And so when you have that happening in lots of different classes, you have to really track on that and learn to manage your time differently. Does that make sense? Okay, great. And embracing the stumbles and embracing the successes. I was thinking today as I was drying my hair and looking at all the gray hair on my head, it struck me that I think each of those gray hairs came from a stumble that my kids provided for me to help them with through the years. Maybe even my own stumbles as an adult. So they will stumble. Those stumbles, I'm going to talk a little bit more about failure and how to handle and deal with that as a parent. But it will happen. There will be these moments where someone tells you, I saw your kid doing this and it was the most amazing thing. It was so touching and I wanted to let you know about that. And then there'll be the opposite one where they say, I saw your kid doing this and it was terrible and you should just be, you should really pull them aside. There will be all those things in between. Those are the years of high school. Embrace the stumbles and the successes. Fall activities, I just picked on 2 here. I picked on marching band and I picked on cross country. And I only want to bring up this concept that your kiddos can get involved as a rising freshman in activities that happen in the fall. And those activities, those school activities, bring them to the school during the summer before their freshman year. They get to know sophomores, juniors, seniors. They get to know other freshmen. They get to come inside the locker room, understand what the school looks like and feels like. Day 1, that student goes into the lunchroom and they know 60 other people. It's really kind of a neat opportunity, and I just bring it up in case it's something that hasn't been considered. Costume clubs, look at this. Look at this list. Everything from Model UN to drama to a guitar club, a piano club. I wonder if the guitar club and the piano club ever get together. That would be kind of cool. Quiz team, yearbooks. If your kiddo looks at this list and says, well, they don't have the club I want car club. You can start a club. Each of these clubs got started by a student and an advisor who had an idea of what would be interesting to a student. Does this make sense? We good? Okay. Here's the Jerome clubs, and here are the Scioto clubs. So, unbelievable list of activities that are open to your kids this next year when they become freshmen. All right, so you blink, and then they're sophomores. We'll go very quickly. They are feeling much more part of the school. They are more confident when they are sophomores. There is that natural step up in academic challenge, especially if they're college bound or thinking about some sort of post-secondary education. Their first AP class may happen sophomore year. A lot of times it's AP US History if they choose to do that, which is kind of I have my own thoughts on why that's one of the hardest classes to do as a first AP class. You can talk to me about that offline. They are also typically juggling driver's education. They're turning 15 and a half, 16, somewhere in that sophomore year. All right, quiz for you. Can anyone say how many hours do you have to sign an affidavit that they have driven in the car? Do you know? Somebody knows? 50, of which how many of those have to be at night? 10. Go, yes, okay, and let me tell you, did I mention the gray hairs? Some of those came from in the car. I used to always just kind of try to be very chill when I was sitting in that seat next to my kiddos, and I would say things like, so next time when we're approaching a stoplight, you're going to want to start braking before you did this last time. It would be good. Next time, I would say that a lot. This leads to newfound freedom. They may need to pay for things involved with that car, so they may need to get a job to put some gas money in. This leads to some complexities, right? Schedule is harder. I'm working in these 50 hours, I'm enjoying these new clubs, my classes are harder. Volunteering. Volunteering, no matter what, is good. No matter what. I can't, like a part-time job and volunteering, I put them both right up there on a pedestal, giant thumbs up for that. Volunteering is also associated with entry into the National Honor Society. So if your student has, Kevin, 3.5 or higher? 4.0 as GPA or NHS to enter as a junior, 3.5? 3.5. So if your student has a 3.5 cumulative, unweighted cumulative GPA at the end of sophomore year, they'll be invited to apply to your school's National Honor Society. When they apply, they will need to have amassed around 20 hours. This has been a little bit of a moving target because of COVID. During their freshman and sophomore years of volunteer time that they can attest to as they apply to NHS. So I only tell you that so that that's not a surprise later. And it's a good thing to do to volunteer anyway. So we would do this before our kids could drive. We would do it together as a family. And my idea there was to do it together and show them. We love the Common Ground Free Store up in Delaware. We would go and volunteer together, pick a shift, all 4 of us would go. And the idea was, again, that we were modeling how to do that. And then once they could drive, they would schedule their own hours. They would go and do that independently. They would be comfortable doing that. Okay. Experience with ACT or SAT, we're going to talk about this more after the academic section. But just as a small point, it should start in my opinion, should start by sophomore year. It's more serious in the junior year. Considered the hardest academically, it is that stair step right upward. It's that 3rd level. If the student is taking those hard classes, there is more flexibility in their schedule. They get to choose more of what they want to choose. Balance can be an issue. A lot of times, new opportunities open up junior year. Maybe they've been in a club for 2 years, and now they have a chance for a leadership position in that club, or 2. And now they have these harder classes, and they have that part-time job, and they are babysitting on the side. Sometimes it can be really hard to maintain that balance, and so it's something you're going to want to kind of watch. College process, I like to say the white hot spotlight flips on January of junior year. It's like, all of a sudden, people start asking, what college visits are you going to go on? And what are you thinking of majoring in? It just feels very real because the student is about 8 months away from the opening of the college application season, which really opens in August of their senior year. More serious ACT, SAT, and then senior year. It's so cool. So many opportunities. There might be senior pictures and senior Thanksgiving and a senior trip. Just start saving money now for all those things. They kind of cost a lot. Schoolwork is still important, and they are away from you a lot. They just are becoming that independent young adult. They're probably driving. They have a lot of things that they're responsible for doing. They're away from you a lot. If they're college bound, their fall of their senior year is filled with a lot of tasks. And then through that year, they'll be hearing back from colleges. Friends will be getting in here. It's a little bit stressful as things sort out. And then it does all sort out. And you have a graduation experience, and you will blink again, and they'll be off to what's next. So I promise you, it's exciting. So there's a lot of personal growth that happens during those 4 years. I love these pictures kind of side by side of this is my 8th grader, this is my, my senior, it's not really my kids, but those are other kids. Those are internet kids. Those are supplement kids. I still have my own kids up here, right? I don't have a lot of pictures of them. I always said they were always right beside me, so I didn't have a ton of pictures of them. But during those years, they're going to change physically, and they will even tell you themselves when they take a health class or a biology class. They'll say, well, I know my prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until I'm 25. They will say that, and they know it. But there'll be moments when they have one foot so squarely in the adult world, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I just had the greatest conversation with Kendall. And then 5 minutes later, whatever, she's wiping her hands that had makeup on them on her carpet. Not making that up. Not making that up. And I'm thinking, who are you? Are you 6? Are you 3? So you're gonna have all those, it's like a roller coaster. If you drink wine, it's not a bad thing to consider stocking up. Or whatever. So, okay, so the time. Your kids, here's another one, just to prepare you. They're gonna be exposed to ideas and people that perhaps not everything jives with what you believe and have been teaching. They will come home to the kitchen table and share some ideas with you that you'll be like, where is that coming from? And that is a little bit different. View it as an opportunity to talk it out. These are young adults who are grown. They are trying to figure out who they are. And the only way they can get there is by trying on these different personas and ideas. And they want to hear from you. They just are also trying to have their independence, right? And they're trying to make sure that they have a chance to figure out who they are. They're barely toward the end of high school. I want you to think about, we're going to go forward to the future again. The end of high school, they have a cap and gown on. You are standing in a parking lot, and graduation ceremony is over. Some pictures are being taken, and you glance over, and you have this sense that your child is ready. They are ready for what's next. You know they are ready. They're confident. They're motivated. They know how to manage and handle a little bit of money. They can call and make a haircut appointment, right? They can cook a meal for themselves. They can do their laundry, right? They're ready. Those, I promise you, those are the things that will come into your head and your heart when you think about readiness for your child. It won't be what they scored on their ACT or SAT. It won't be their GPA. It won't. It will be who they are. I'll cry. I'm sorry, I'm going to cry. Who they are as a human and what they have become during those high school years. That's the key. But none of those things, that readiness is not magically going to happen without you, without your help. So what can you do as a parent? I honestly think of all the things I'm about to tell you tonight, and I know some of you are like, just get to that academic section, lady. I want to know about those 7. More. This is the most important slide I can tell you about. This is your everyday with your child. So are you ready? So just 5 things. 1, exploration. When they have something that they say they're interested in, I'm interested in growing house plants, or I don't know, video game strategy, or turtles, or zoo school. Help them learn more about it. Help them learn more about it. You've probably already been doing this already through all these years of development up to now. It continues in high school. And one of the nice things that you have are some built-in things inside the Dublin system that can help your child get connected to those things that they find interested, right? Some are built right in, which is great. Just find a way for them to explore it. It could be the thing that ends up turning into their college major or their career. Or it could be the thing like I talked about before with the dentist. We went to that, that dental camp. I stuck my fingers in someone's mouth and I knew that wasn't right, right? That's exploring an interest. Always good. Connections. Connections to our community, a student feeling connected to their community is critical. And I like to think of 3 different age groups that are really important for our students to connect with. Those that are older than them, those that are younger than them, and then their own age group. So try to think of how is that going to get done during these high school years. So connecting with someone older could be a coach, a mentor, a teacher, it could be a boss. It could be co-workers, at Kroger who are older than you. That could be volunteering at a memory care facility. So there's lots of ways to have touch points with older people in the community. Younger, put them in a position as being the older person. They get to kind of be a voice of authority or a leader very naturally because of the age difference. You could do that by being a youth soccer referee. You could be a tutor, you could babysit, you know, helping with the younger community. And then, of course, the built-in way that you'll connect with students day to day in your classes, in your school. So that was an easier one, just thinking about the other two is critical. Failure. So I talked about those stumbles and those successes and that gray hair. Those stumbles, so I'll recommend a book. You've probably heard of it before. It's an older book called The Gift of Failure by Jessica Leahy. It's very good. But it talks about kind of the value of your student experiencing failure. And from my perspective, what I would tell you is we want them to understand how it feels when they stumble. And for us to be beside them, shoulder to shoulder, to help them get up, dust off, repair the situation as best they can, and move through it and forward. And when we teach that with them, when we do it with them during the high school years, they're building that skill. And that way, when they go off, if they head to college, and they get that F on the first flunk out bio class, right? They don't think it's the end of the world. They've had a stumble before. They've gotten up, brushed off, dusted off, and been able to move forward. And they'll remember that. They'll remember some of our students will have more stumbles and will have more experience with that. Did I mention the gray hairs? That's good. So that builds that resilience so that they're able to deal with that the next time. And then self-sufficiency. If we want our children to manage money, cook a meal, clean up after themselves, wash clothes, go to get their oil changed, make a doctor's appointment. If we want them to do that, we have to give them the opportunity to do it. We have to do less during the high school years and let them do more so that they have that chance to build those skills. One quick tip about phone calls, they freak out. No, there's a couple students here, so I'm talking about you. They freak out when we say, can you call that store and ask them about that? And the big thing, here's what it is. Here's what, you all are laughing, some of you have been through it. Here's why. They're convinced someone's going to ask them a question that they don't know the answer to. So if you model that with them and say, someone is going to ask you a question, let's accept it, the doctor's office is going to ask you a question or say something about insurance, you have no idea what they're talking about. So go into it knowing that there will be a question you don't know the answer to. And here's what you're going to say. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to write down the question and I'm going to give you a call back once I find out that answer, and then we'll be able to move forward doctor's office. That helps. That helps them to know it's going to happen, and here's what I do. Okay, my favorite parenting word? Yeah, I actually just used this one before. Carrie, who was here before?
Sarah.
Blonde hair.
Sarah.
Sarah?
Yeah.
So Sarah and I were talking, and I started to use the word because, and I needed to stop and use I started to use the word why, and I needed to use the word because. Let me model for you. Your kiddo, your growing kiddo, is going to say less to you through these high school years, typically. Some will say more, but most will say less, and I call it the Heisman. They push you away as they're saying less. So you're getting very little information from them. And when they say something, when they come home and they say something like, usually sounds like, I hate this class, or I love this class. My daughter came home, I love art class. Great, okay, and I'm thinking in my head, she loves art. How, should we get her in a ceramics class, and what should we do? How can I support her and help her follow? But I didn't let that be my assumption. I said, Kendall, you love art class. Can you finish the sentence for me? I love art class because, and do you want to know what it was? The teacher put a bowl of candy on the edge of his desk. I'm not making that up. So it is different candy every week. Mom, you must go to Costco or something. I said, really? All right, so you are candy motivated. I learned that. But I used that word because, right, to help her just extend her sentence. Why is confrontational? Because is more shoulder to shoulder. Tell me more about that. I said that because. So just put that one in your pocket. Little note about summers. Summers are an awesome time to have career-minded experiences. Get that volunteering done. Do some work. Start adulting. Plan a meal. Maybe they have to budget for a meal, plan a meal, do a whole meal for your family. Practicing those things in the summer is so much easier than doing it during the school year. But, cautionary tale, you can be consumed by a sport. There's always a coach somewhere that's like, you need to be here every day for all of summer. You cannot, and as parents we feel like, oh my gosh, you have to be there every day. You have to find the balance point, right? So you have to be able to go back and say, Ohio Business Week is this week. It's critical that, my kiddo wants to attend that. We've got to find a way to balance out this sport with that other requirement in our family. So just keep that in mind. We do produce a phenomenal list. We'll have a link of those on our website. Okay, so you know what's next. This is next. So any questions that you might want to bring up about that first part? How are we doing? How are we doing?
Good.
We're doing okay? Okay, good. Yes?
This is not academic, so I'm sorry about that. But you said something about National Honor Society, receiving invitation in junior year to 3.5. What about your senior year? Do you have any redemption if you go above 3.5 in your senior year?
Absolutely. So the question was, I mentioned the act of having a 3.5 at the end, unweighted at the end of sophomore year, and if a student, they would then have that invitation to NHS. Is there an opportunity to have that same kind of invitation at the end of junior year to join as senior? The answer is yes, and they need same thing, 3.5
Same
weighted.
application process.
Same application process, same GPA requirement, cumulative at the end of the 3 years. There's one slight difference though. They need more volunteer hours when they apply as a junior than they do applying as a sophomore. It's documented. I think we'll send that in our follow-up to you tomorrow. Okay? Yay, good question. Okay, we ready for this? Are you really ready? Okay, I have to preface this. This is not the forum for me to go into the kind of detail that some of you may be ready for with these options. My job is to weave a thin thread all the way through these options for you today so that you get your first intake of this information. Tomorrow's follow-up email will have links to everything that I talk about. Everything. I just want you to take this in the first time. Listen to it and piece it together, and then you have plenty of time to dig into the details from here. Okay, academics are one piece. We've talked about those other pieces of who your student is. They are really important. All right, here we go. So, those grades. Your students have heard about this. I know it's gonna all start to count in high school, but it really does start to count in high school. It really does. Your students' first high school classes begin their transcript, and that transcript is an official listing of all the classes they took and all the grades that they got. And colleges would see that, perhaps employers would see that if they ever need to submit an official high school transcript. So it is simply a record. It really is a record of what they are doing in those classes, what classes they take and how they do with them. It is awesome to start strong and not start in a hole. I see it every year, kids that struggle for whatever reason in that freshman year, they dig themselves a GPA hole that is really hard to climb back out of numerically. So if at all possible, think about helping prepare your student for a strong initial academic experience. And so one thing that pops in my head as a parent is making sure we're careful about not taking on too much challenge, but really the right amount of challenge. I might think that might trigger me to think, probably good to have a study center, so that that's built into their day to have that time to work on the things that are important for them to work on. Okay, so when you, and here's one more. You are planning next year's classes. Right now you're thinking about freshman year. Not a ton of choices for freshman year. What I want you to do is have a fun activity paper, pencil, course catalog, graduation requirements, and you get to play with what all 4 years can look like for your student. This should be somewhat of a hypothetical and joyful experience. Your child, let them with that pencil fill in some fun electives that they look forward to taking. Let them dream of what they might do with the free time that they have their junior and senior year. Maybe they start to read about some of the academies over at Emerald Campus. Maybe they read about this list of IB classes and they're like, that one sounds pretty interesting. Let them dream and start to look forward to some things that happen in high school. So, you need a course catalog. We're going to send it to you. Okay? You may or may not have it. It's an awesome document. Kevin, I know you told me you prefer, you're younger than me, so you prefer the interactive version of the course catalog. I'm old. I prefer the one that reads more like an actual book that has a table of contents and I can go to the section. Just personal preference, but Dublin, once again, over-delivers and they bring both to you. So you can choose which one you prefer. We'll send you those. Website links to those, graduation requirements, I'm going to show you in just a minute. Planning tool, we'll send you ours to help you start to lay out what all 4 of those years can look like. Dublin also has graduation, their own district graduation requirements. We'll point you toward those in the course catalog as well. Here's a sample schedule. So just so you can see what it might look similar to in your house. Freshman and sophomore year, you can see that this student is what I call front-end loading. They are getting done a bunch of things that they need to get done in their freshman and sophomore year. So it opens up their schedule in junior and senior year to take what they want to take. That's the benefit. That's the joy of the back end of high school is I get to take what I want to take. You'll see up there too that to graduate from high school in the state of Ohio, you need 4 credits, which generally translates as a credit generally translates as a year. Not always, but generally. So essentially 4 credits of English, 4 credits of math, 3 credits of science, 3 of social studies. You can also see that they need an art credit, a full art credit. They need PE, a half credit of PE, which here's a weird one. If they take PE inside the school, each semester of PE will count as a quarter credit. So they would need to take 2 classes, 2 semester-long classes to achieve that half credit. That's the only one that's a little wonky like that. Health is a class half credit, so again, typically half credit equals a semester-long class. So just to give you that sense. And then 4.5 credits of electives. So almost 5 electives, almost more than anything, electives are critical. And we're going to talk about some of those electives and how those get fulfilled. So this is a student freshman year. They're taking English 1, they're taking algebra, physical science, and world history. They're taking world language 2 as a freshman, which means that they took world language 1 as an 8th grader. Make sense? So they actually earn a high school credit while in 8th grade. Some students that maybe take algebra in 8th grade, same thing. They have taken a high school credit class while in 8th grade. But you can follow along. English, English 2, English 3, sorry, I needed to use my Roman numerals there, and then English 4. Algebra, geometry, algebra 2, and then perhaps pre-calc. But look at junior and senior year. I get to take a lot of electives. This student only needs 2 classes senior year to be able to graduate from high school. Is anyone thinking their student goes to school for 2 classes as a senior? No. Yes, we want them instead to take what they want to take and they get to architect and design what they want to do. So that's where a lot of your options come in. This is an example of what a transcript will look like. So your student's transcript will list out all of their classes and all of their grades for those classes. Yes, you had a question about this?
Going back to that last slide,
Yeah.
how many periods are there in a day in high school?
7 class periods that you'll schedule for. Excellent, thank you for pointing that out. 7 class periods and a lunch. But the lunch doesn't count as a period. Good question. All right, so sample transcript. The only thing I'm going to point out to you is when your student applies to college in fall of their senior year, they have freshman grades, sophomore grades, junior grades on their transcript. Only 3 years of grades on the transcript. That's it. So I think it's really important for you to keep that in mind, that most college decisions are made based on your students, based on 3 years of high school. So it's important to sometimes I have to say, I'm going to really put it in gear senior year. I'm going to take that and I'm like, well, perhaps we could bump that back a little bit and do some more, as a sophomore or as a junior, just to kind of smooth it out. Don't hockey stick it. Okay, so that's a sample transcript. Every child is different. Couple of things that we wanted to point out. If I had to guess, I'd probably say 40% of the people in this room here have a student that has an IEP or a 504. And as a parent, you're all set. With a 504 or an IEP, you might be wondering, how is that support going to look once they get to my high school? How will they connect with an intervention specialist? And I asked Kevin to take a moment and share with you what he would recommend and want you to consider and have in mind about supporting a student with an IEP or a 504.
Sure, thanks. So all those plans are going to be very different. They're all individualized. So depending on the level of support and what the goals are within each plan is going to determine the amount of support they receive in high school. So we have certain classrooms that are designed to be very traditional high school classrooms that are going to have maybe an extra teacher in there to support, or the teacher is just aware that your child maybe gets some extra time on a test or needs to be in a quieter space. So obviously they're all going to have that information going into the school year, and they'll be sure to have a plan for each child with an individual plan going into it. Some of those plans have things that are much more intensive, and all of those things will happen. If they are in the plan, they will happen. So just work closely with your intervention specialists and support staff at the middle school, and they work closely with our staff at the high schools as those transitions take place, so we will be sure that your children are well taken care of, and you will hear from your high school assigned intervention specialist going into the school year, so you'll have a game plan going into it, and you'll have a dedicated point of contact, so that when you do have questions, or if you feel like there's maybe a certain amount of support that's not there, we'll be sure to be open to those conversations to make sure you feel that your child is getting what he or she needs.
Awesome. Awesome. Feel good about that? Yes? Okay, good. If a student is interested in career tech, this is maybe a new phrase to you. This is a form of education that's usually hands-on, tied to a specific career area of interest. Totally fine for a student going to college or a student going out into the working world directly after high school. Both are, that's kind of that concept of career tech. Think of tolls or even some of the academies at Emerald campus. So if a student's thinking about those are often a bit of a chunkier commitment time-wise, and so it's good for that student to pre-plan for that as they're thinking about their high school years. So like Kevin talked about a minute ago, maybe there's a senior who left their PE or health until their senior year, right? That's a student that didn't front-end load, and now they have to take that class as a senior, which limits the amount of time that they might have to do something like career tech. Students needing more academic challenge, I will tell you as a parent, I struggled with this. My oldest was identified gifted, grade accelerated, the whole thing. And middle school was really hard because we just had to kind of count on someone to differentiate and appropriately challenge him. High school was much easier. There were courses already built that were going to be appropriate for all levels of students. And that was the beautiful thing about high school and all the choices that you have here in Dublin. DCS Virtual, I just want to let you know there is that online, self-guided option for students. Totally a special circumstances situation. The gist is that, for all intents and purposes, we want our students to be in an instructor-led, in-person class. That makes the most sense. The studies show that's how students will learn best. This is an option for special circumstances. It would be something you want to talk to your counselor about. But setting kids up for success. Just want to share with you the idea of supportive tutoring. Most of the time, Like I see it a lot with pre-calc. Pre-calc's a funny math class, and it's a class that's like a little bit different math. It's not like following the steps of algebra or following the steps of geometry. They have to put things together a little bit differently in their head in pre-calc, and a lot of kids will struggle with that. So the idea of sort of supportive or preemptive tutoring is the idea that maybe you set them up with a tutor for a class that they feel a little bit unsure about from the start. And that way you have this little touch point that's happening maybe once a week. Maybe it's with a National Honor Society kid who is doing some volunteering, you know, as part of their volunteer hours. Just that supportive tutoring so that it doesn't, you don't wait until the train's off the tracks. And then we get a tutor and try to help. So just that idea I wanted to share with you, the value of the Study Center. Can't speak enough, especially that first year, about building in a study center until you really know what high school is like for your kiddo. Okay, so I'm about ready to tell you about some of those options. I'm going to preface it with a couple things. Once again, those first 2 years are academic baseline. There are not a ton of options. Biggest options that exist for your kids during those first couple years are, you know, do I want to take the regular or traditional version of a class or the honors version of a class? Most of you are looking at that kind of stuff right now. We'll talk about that. But there aren't a ton of options there. The options get much wider later in high school. Looking ahead to what's exciting for your child, that's the idea of getting out that course catalog, having them look through it, see what's tied to their interests, see what things, I always like to ask this question, go through the course catalog, which class looks so horrible that you could not pay them $1 million to go to that class. That's always one of my favorite. And then to get them to finish the sentence. And why is that one so horrible? Well, that one's horrible because, you know, and you can learn some things about your kids that way. Consider all of these options I'm about to share with you evenly. All of them have pros and cons. There is no single right answer. I get asked this a lot. Well, exactly how many AP classes do we need to take, or does my kid need to take, to think about an Ivy League? There is no rubric. There is no magic answer. There is what is right for your child, the appropriate and challenging thing for your child to take during high school that's going to look different for every kid. You can mix and match these options I'm about to share with you, and remember all along, what is that desired end result? I want my kiddo to be ready to take a confident and clear next step at the end of high school. So that means that they need to challenge themselves appropriately and engage with the things that they find interesting. Oops. Okay, so I told you before, there's 7. I'm going to say them again. You ready? Honors, AP, IB, College Credit Plus, Toll's Career and Technical Center, the academies at Emerald Campus, and electives inside your high school. Okay? That's a lot of moving pieces and parts. You can read about all of those things for sure in the course catalog, and I'm going to send you additional information about each of those. But what I want to do is just sort of briefly describe each of these so you understand what they are and how they might fit. So the first ones you're encountering are honors classes. I like to think of these as a half step up in difficulty, where the AP, the IB, and the College Credit Plus are a full step up in difficulty. So half step up in difficulty. What that means is that if a student is taking an honors English 9 class, they're going to cover all the same things as a traditional English 9 class. However, it's going to go faster, it's going to go deeper, more is going to be asked of that student. They may have some extra projects, right? So these are kids that take that honors class who are up for the challenge and who like the subject. Right? Why else would I do that? If I hate English, why would I want to do more, be asked to do more? I hate to say that, but use your gas pedal somewhere else. Maybe that student says, well, I am up for the challenge to do something more difficult in this subject area, but not this subject area. So pick and choose where it makes sense. But they're going to cover the same things. There's also a GPA benefit to taking an honors class. The concept is, and the same thing is true for AP, IB, and College Credit Plus, but it's it's a little different because it's a half point for honors and a full point for the other ones. And here's the idea. If a student challenges themselves and takes that harder class, and they take that AP psychology class, it was harder, and they got a B. That B will equate numerically on their GPA to getting an A in a traditional class. So that's what weighting means. Does that make sense? So the student is not being penalized for getting that B. Okay, that's the good. Okay, I think everybody's got that. So honors, half step up. We good with honors? AP, IB, and college credit plus. I'm going to put the three of them together on a shelf. We're going to talk about them one by one, but they're all a little bit different. These are classes that for students that are likely college bound or students who really want that extra full step up in difficulty or challenge in a particular subject area. AP, IB, and College Credit Plus. We're going to start with AP. AP stands for Advanced Placement. These are classes that are made by the large nonprofit called the College Board. The College Board also makes the PSAT, the SAT, lots of other college prep materials. Pretty cool stuff. They make 38 different AP classes. So, and each high school can decide, we want to offer these 15, or these 12, or these 3, right? So you'll see those in the course catalog, which ones are offered here in Dublin. So when a student takes an AP psychology class, for example, they're taking a high school class with a high school teacher earning a high school grade. Kids will often say to me, no, those are college classes. They are high school classes. They go on the high school transcript. The college part of AP comes into play when a student takes an exam, a 3-hour exam at the end of the AP class, taken in May. No kidding, these tests are very hard. They are generally multiple choice. There's some writing with some of them, and a student can score 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 on that exam. When they get that score, they can take that score and they can look at colleges and see what the AP credit transfer policy is, cross their fingers. I call the P in AP potential because it's potential credit, depending upon how your student performs on the exam and what the college will let you bring in that score for the major at that university. Does that make sense? You're going to pay a little fee for the AP exam, $100 or so, and is there anything else I want to tell you about AP? Full point GPA uptick. So just like I described with AP Psych, right, if you get that B, it's the same, it goes as a 4.0 on your transcript for that class instead of a 3.0, which is a normal B would be in a normal class. If they get an A in that class, they get a 5.0 on their GPA. That's how we hear kids that have a GPA higher than a 4.0. Okay, that's AP. Right next door, you are so lucky that you have the International Baccalaureate Program. Super cool. Has the word international in it. Students would tell you that most of the IB classes they take have a global feel to them. They have a real world, realistic, often collaborative feel to the IB classes. A lot of kids will mix and match. They'll take some AP, some IB. A couple things that are different about IB though. One, you can take a series of classes junior and senior year that can qualify you to be part of the IB diploma program. It's not common. There's a handful of kids every year. It can't be more than...
Sure, I'd say Coffin probably has, it's all 3 high schools now together in the same. We usually have probably between 20 and 30
20 and
here,
30.
and then the other schools are going to have some as well.
Perfect. So 20 to 30 or so kids per year will be in that program. And so they're really dedicating their junior and senior year to the IB program, completing a series of classes and being able to earn an IB diploma. Why is that good or different? It's prestigious. Some colleges love IB diploma kids and will scoop them up and reward them with money. as an example. So IB is just a little bit different that way, but they're still going to sit for an exam in May. The exams are a little bit different. There's some written parts, some oral parts to the exam. They get a 7 and 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 on their exam, and then they can take that to colleges and say, what will you do with my 4 or my 5 on my exam? So that's International Baccalaureate. That's number 2. All IB classes at Emerald Campus. APs scattered across all 3 high schools. Okay? We good so far? Are you mad at me? Are we doing okay? Are you mad? Okay, good. Okay. Yes?
What grade level was honors and AP again?
So grade level for honors, typically you're going to see honors classes in that 9th and 10th grade. I think there's a few, maybe English has an honors 11. Okay, so math classes. So typically though, that first half of high school, typically AP, IB, college credit plus, typically second half of high school. Typically. There are exceptions to everything I'm telling you. Okay, all right, and then college credit plus. Again, for a student wanting that full step up in academic challenge, college credit plus has been, let me think, 2015 was the first year it was, it came out in the state of Ohio. It replaced an old program called PSEO, which sometimes I'll have parents say to me, I did that. I took PSEO when I was in high school here in Ohio. There's almost always somebody in the audience who did. So it's been something that's existed that kids could take real live college classes while in high school. It's just that College Credit Plus came out in 2015 to sort of repair all the things that were difficult or broken about the way that the old program worked. So what is it? Open to students in grades 7 through 12 who are qualified to participate. How do you qualify? Because you're going to be taking actual, real, live college classes from a professor, you have to show that you are ready for college level coursework. The most common way that you show that you're ready for college level coursework is by taking the ACT or SAT and scoring above a readiness benchmark to show that you're ready for college level coursework. On the lowest bar or benchmark, does this make sense so far? The lowest bar is, and I just know my ACT numbers right off the bat, 18 on English, 22 on math, 22 on reading. So the student, perhaps, when they're a sophomore, maybe they take the ACT, they score that, they're thinking, I might want to throw in a couple of real live college classes. You can do that. You can, as a student, sometimes it's called dual enrollment or dual credit. And the reason why it's called that is that you're dually enrolled in a college for that class, and you're still enrolled back at your home high school to take classes at that home high school. If you have 7 class periods to schedule, and you take 2 classes through Columbus State, for example, you would take your other 5, perhaps, back at your home high school. We good so far? Okay, real, live, actual, transcripted college credit. Every parent would want me to make sure that I told you this. Out of your pocket comes $0 as long as your student passes the class. Okay, $0. And your student can earn up to 120 credits under the College Credit Plus program. Last time I looked, that's full BS or BA. Okay, so those are 4. On top of that, we have tolls, and we have Emerald Campus. I'm going to talk more about those in a minute. But in general, I want you to also tuck away the idea of joyful diversion, right? This might be that class that your student's been looking forward to taking, and it's going to be the thing in their day that makes them smile and have kind of a brain break. Make sure to work one of those in every semester for your kiddos. Look for ways for them to engage with their career interests and just their regular interests to explore those. You have so many choices. We do a high school scheduling webinar where we talk about all these in a lot more detail. That's coming on January 27th. Here's one more wrinkle. Dublin, because Dublin is awesome. Dublin makes available to you at the Emerald Campus a handful of CCP classes right here, whichever way. Whichever way, we're at Emerald Campus. I feel like it's that way. This way? I feel like that way. It is. Just check. I'll have to check when I get outside. Right over there, your students can take several CCP classes without having to go to another college to take them. They're right over there. So that's really cool. You can see it's called the Early College Experience. If you want to take a suite of classes, but they can also kind of take Wednesday, Tuesday if they choose to, we'll send you that link. This is something that would be part of the Emerald Campus open house that I shared with you before. They'll talk about that at length. Career Tech. So I mentioned this Career Tech idea to you a couple times tonight. I remember the Career Center from when I was growing up, and I will say out loud, it was the place where kids who were totally maybe not being successful in the traditional high school, maybe they needed to pick up some skills in welding or cosmetology, something like that, because they were going to work right after high school. Look at me, times have changed. Our Career Tech centers are unbelievable. They are resources that every one of you should understand about as numbers of honors, AP, IB, CCP. Toll's Career and Technical Center is your traditional full-scale career tech school. That's an option for all Dublin students. We do these parent forums, so you can learn more about those. Cindy Alderman at Toll's is the contact. She is unbelievable, great person to answer questions. These are the career tech programs available at Toll's. Peanut Gallery had an incredible comment about Zoo School. So, love that. Has anybody else heard of Zoo School? Look at you! You are on it. Okay, so Zoo School is another career tech option that's available not from Toll, so we don't see it here, but it's available through the Delaware Area Career Center. But because it's a unique program, it doesn't exist at Toll, that means that Dublin kids can apply to Zoo School. So it's another one of those career tech programs. So these programs are programs that are half-day, junior and senior year. Students are earning credentials. They're often earning college credits that are baked into these programs. My own kiddo did one of these at the Delaware Area Career Center called Digital Design. She competed on an all-girls web development team, state and national level. She wrote her college essay about that experience in her career tech school, got into every college that she applied to. So it's good stuff. I just want you to be aware of the options and to know that they exist. The Emerald Campus Experiential Academies, also amazing programs. Look at those options. Aviation, engineering. Again, I'll go back one. You'll see there's a little bit of overlap. So if you have a student who's interested in engineering, interested in exercise science, I would tell you need to look at these two. Look at them side by side. There's pros and cons to everything. You need to weigh and evaluate those, especially as they get closer to making the decisions about junior and senior year. And how can you do that? I would tell you on January 19th, your key is to go and visit the Emerald campus for that open house. That's how you're going to start your knowledge gathering process. Okay, high school graduation requirements, briefly. In addition to the credits that they have to earn, remember I talked about 4 English, 4 math, 3 science, 3, right? In addition to that, there's a competency element. They have to have passed either 2 different tests, the algebra test or any sophomore English test, or they can do 3 other things if that's not a good option for the student. And on top of that, third, they have to earn 2 diploma seals. I am not going to talk at any length about the diploma seals. All I want you to do is to understand it will work out. There will be plenty of ways for your student to earn those diploma seals through the next 4 years. Plenty of time. Plenty of time for you to work on it, to think about it, read about it, and it will be part of their normal academic journey through high school. A couple FAQs. How do I know if my student wants to take honors or should take honors? Teacher recommendation. So we haven't even mentioned that. Super important. They know your kid and have seen your kid for the last year. They can tell you what their 2 cents are about what they should take. Also, interest level, of course, and willingness to step up to the challenge. Better to get a B in an honors class or an A in a traditional class. College admissions folks would say, better to get the B because you challenged yourself appropriately. And 1B is not going to make or break getting into college A or college B. Okay? My child wants to take ceramics, but I want him to take public speaking. I hope that child gets to take ceramics. I hope that child takes ceramics 1 and 2. That's just me. So, and I know you want them to take public speaking because you see the value in that. Perhaps some negotiation can happen in there too, so that that student understands that taking public speaking is possibly a positive thing for them. How many AP classes should my student take in high school? I already answered that. There's no magic answer. It's different for every kiddo. Work with your counselor to kind of think through that to make sure it's appropriate and challenging. PE waiver, I did tell you that a PE class is standard traditional PE class semester, each are a quarter credit. If your student participates in band, cheer, school sanctioned sport for 2 seasons, then they can achieve a PE waiver, which means that they simply don't have to take the PE classes. Does that make sense? They are waived from that requirement. Are we okay? Good, okay. How many years of world language are required? 0 are required to graduate from the state of Ohio. Why do kids take so much world language? They take it because colleges require it on the admission side. So colleges can require as little as 1 year of world language. That's uncommon. Typically, it's 2 years of world language, can be 3 or more years. And that often goes up as the more selective the college gets. Okay. Career resources. So you heard me tonight talk a few times about the idea of thinking about careers, ideas, interests, because that's going to help your students unlock the classes that they choose to take and ultimately what they might want to do when they are all done with high school. Christy Benny, I would love for you, if you'd like to share just a couple of thoughts about what these families can expect to see from a career experience and guidance situation as the students move through high school.
Well, the good news is, if you have a child in 8th grade, you're here now, and they've been experiencing career education lessons all year in middle school, and 7th and 6th grade have as well, and that's new this year through a program called Home Base. They actually, this week and next week, this whole month, are learning about Emerald Campus and tolls and options for them moving forward in high school. So they're going to get some of that information as well. And then they also will hear about the open house and all this stuff that's going on and have access to digital resources to explore during school. So they're getting some of this too. So you can have a conversation at the kitchen table, hopefully, and be on the same page with what's available. I'll share, there is a Career Connections webpage that's built for students. And there are tons of great resources on there, including videos of people in different careers. We have several assessments that students have access to. On our career education website, which is a different site, it's more built for families. You can learn about an assessment tool called U-Science that students in high school are able to take. Now, they are not able right now in middle school, but once they hit 9th grade, they get an account-free access to that tool. It's an aptitude and interest assessment. It takes 90 minutes, and it's a bunch of brain games, is what they call it. And it is a highly research-based tool that they are able to then have their own dashboard of results and also learn other things about their personality and how it aligns with different types of career possibilities and how their aptitude aligns with careers, which that's really the key there. That's something that you'll learn about if you visit our career education website, and the kids will get emails about this so that they have an opportunity to access it. The career guide website that Beth mentioned earlier, there's also sort of a quick guide to help get you started. If you're like, oh my gosh, this is just so much information, there's a part of that course guide site for career guidance, and it has a little video that's about 6 or 7 minutes long, and it gives you step-by-step what they need to do for planning and some actionable steps that you can watch with your child if you just want somebody to tell it to you straight in a short little video. And there is the form that you'll see here on the slide where they can plan out those 4 years in advance and dream, like what Beth described, to really think about where they might see themselves later in high school. And it can change. Every year they can shift and pivot. But it's really important. Research shows that middle school is the most important time to explore careers. High school is for planning. So we want them to really move into that phase where they're looking ahead And careers also give kids a goal. So before they pick a college, they need to pick a sort of a career pathway and take classes that align with the things that they're interested in, and also figure out what they don't like. And those Tolles and Emerald Campus programs are great for that. They're going to have several opportunities, and it's changed because the last couple years with COVID, we've had to shift our practices and done some things virtually, but we do visits. This year, we took all sophomores out to Tolles Career Technical Center to learn about all of their options at both Tolles and Emerald Campus. So we'll see how that looks next year as we keep shifting, we'll just kind of, time will tell. But there are going to be lots of opportunities and digital resources that will help them make these decisions along with you.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Thank you, Christy. Again, baked in to your child's experience, they'll be thinking about and being coached to think about what they might want to do. Because at some point, I'll show you a slide in just a moment, at some point, their schooling will end and they will move into the working world. And you will jump for joy when that happens. And the whole key is you don't want them living in your basement. At least maybe that's just my house. They said, okay, some of you also have that goal. So awesome, awesome. So do not get overwhelmed. I do want to take you through just a couple slides on the ACT, SAT, and I want to wrap up in our last few minutes. I did want to ask Kevin, though, to also just share, so this is a lot to take in, but I wanted him to sort of leave you with 3 ideas from a school counselor who he can share with you what he wants you to have in mind about that successful transition. So, Kevin, you want to?
Sure. So I've been thinking about this throughout the day, and as I've been sitting through this presentation, it's the first time I've sat through it. So I really wanted to be here more from a curiosity standpoint in terms of what this messaging was going to be like for our families, and it's really been spot on. So that's been a huge relief for me, and hopefully for Beth to hear. I feel that I want to go back to maybe before we hit the academic piece. It's just kind of how things have changed as parents. This is a very different high school experience that your children are going through compared to what you went through, and certainly the generations before that. So they've got different challenges, they've got different distractions, things are happening faster, the expectations are different in terms of how they interact with each other. We just obviously want you to help them navigate that as best you can, but rather than kind of maybe go back and iterate some of the things that Beth described earlier, I really enjoy kind of using books as a way to educate myself, to become a better counselor, a better parent. I definitely didn't do that as a high school student. I always tell students, I wish I started earlier. I think usually they look at me and think, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. So maybe when I'm an old guy like you, I'll start reading books. But I do think that since I'm at a similar age as many of you in this room, I am going to recommend a couple of books that I think might be helpful for you to put on your radar, and I'm going to recommend a couple that if your child is a reader, you think maybe just leave them laying around the house, they might pick them up, who knows. But one in particular that I think would really help is How to Raise an Adult by Julia Lithcott-Ames, and I'll send these to you, Beth, too, so you can study these with me tomorrow. But she's a former admissions person from Stanford, and just has some great messaging from a parenting standpoint, from an admissions counselor standpoint. It's just a really wonderful book in terms of how to empower your child to be able to take care of themselves. So that's one I really like for parents. Sometimes parents, when they get to high school, they feel like they had this great relationship with their child when they were younger, and all of a sudden they don't talk to me the same way, I don't have the same relationship, I don't know how to connect with them anymore. So there's one that I really like called A Grown-Up's Guide to Teenage Humans, and it's written by a guy named Josh Shipp. And it's got some really actionable steps you can take to reconnect with your children if you're feeling like you don't have that same relationship that you used to have. So I really like that both for parents. For students, my all-time favorite book for anybody, no matter what age you are, is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. So anybody here read that book or heard of that book? It's phenomenal. I'm starting the year with it now. I've probably read it 5 or 6 times already. Every time I go back, it reminds me of things I want to be thinking about and implement, and it's really helped me become a better person in terms of the kind of person I want to become, and it's helped my messaging with students when I'm counseling them. So that's one that I think would be great for your children to read, but really for you as well, maybe a great book for you to talk about with your kids. That's a good one to read together if you can convince them to do that. And then finally is one that is really just for your child, and it's the name's really cheesy, but it's called How to Be a High School Superstar. And it's by Cal Newport, and he works at Georgetown. He's a computer science professor out there, but he wrote it. It's by a 10-year-old book, so you got to preface it with there's some things that are referenced in here that are pretty outdated, but the messaging is great. But the one thing I don't love about it is the vast majority of the examples and kind of the the students he's interviewing are all people from the most highly selective colleges in the country, but really the whole concept behind the book is how to be a relaxed superstar, meaning take things that challenge you appropriately, but don't overschedule yourself with so many things because you think that's what you're expected to do, and then have a miserable high school experience as a result. Do the things that are fun, do the things that are interesting, try things that sound cool, and then see what it turns into, because people who then really dive into something that's unique and different and tailored to them, those are the ones that stand out on those applications for those really highly selective schools or any college, right? And more importantly, they're just gonna like high school more if they're doing things that are fun and interesting and right up their alley. So, don't create expectations for them, let them kind of figure out what they are interested in, and then just encourage that, be interested in that. So that's kind of what I'll leave you with in terms of what I feel like will add a lot of value if you want to walk out of here and have some good resources.
I love that. I love that. I'll add one more. Frank Rooney's "Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be," and I only add that because it goes right along with Cal Newport's the concept of being genuine, thinking about what's right for you, especially when it comes to college. We can get caught up sometimes in those name brands of certain colleges and think that's going to be the path to success, and that happens in Dublin, it happens in Olentangy and New Albany, and it's a great book to help kind of widen that thinking. Awesome. Thank you immensely. I don't know Atomic Habits, so that one's going to go on my list, as well as the Whistling Vivaldi. So I've got a little travel coming up. I'm so excited. Can you hang with me for maybe 10 more minutes? And we're going to talk. You guys are like, you're ready to run screaming from the room, I can tell. So hang with me. We are going to talk, I'm going to talk just this much about ACT, SAT, and then we're going to kind of wrap things up. And I want to make sure I leave a little bit of time if you've got some questions for Kevin, if you've got some questions for Christy, if you've got some questions for me. I'm happy to hang around. I'm an empty nester now with a lot of gray hair, so I'm happy to hang around and answer some questions for you. So ACT, SAT. I only want you to know this. There's a lot of, when Kevin and I talked the other day, he used the word myths, and it's so true. There's a lot of myths and misinformation floating around about the ACT and the SAT right now. What I want you to know is what they are and what the heck it really is going to mean to your student. Are they still meaningful? Or I keep hearing my neighbors say that they don't need to take the tests anymore. I heard that in Kroger or in Giant Eagle, and what's really the truth? So these tests are, the ACT and the SAT, just to back it up half a step, they are college admissions tests that have been in, you probably took them if you grew up and were heading toward college. You took the ACT or the SAT. Today, colleges have no preference on brand. They used to. Today, all colleges will take either one. So a kiddo has to decide which one they prefer. There are now only minor differences between the two tests. They used to be hugely different tests. Now there are just minor differences between the two of them. We are going to send you a testing overview. It's probably a 2-page document. If you read that document, I promise you, you will feel very informed about what the tests are, how to engage with them, when to engage with them. We will send you that overview. When you think about the timeline, I know you're telling me, I have a rising freshman. Why are we talking about this? It moves very quickly. And the other piece is, there is, the math component is a little bit tricky. Sometimes when our kids are way ahead in math, and they're maybe taking algebra or geometry early, and then they're getting into algebra 2 and pre-calc, they're getting further away from the math that's actually covered in the ACT and SAT. And sometimes they're a little bit surprised by how much geometry and how much algebra that they haven't touched in a long time. So I just want you to be aware and understand that you can engage with the tests when it makes sense for you. They're certainly going to take them for real in the junior year. I would tell you and encourage you to consider taking both tests early and for practice whenever that child is ready. I know lots of kids who take the test in middle school. Just to take it, just to rip the wrapping paper off of it and understand what the tests are. Someone's going to say to me, but somebody is going to see that test score, and I don't want them seeing a bad test score. Today, the scores are held in a database that is controlled by the student. So no one is going to see a score until a student releases a score to someone who they want to get it. Does that make sense? That's very important. Okay, test options. So this is what you're hearing in the grocery store, or hearing at neighborhood euchre, or hearing from a friend. Are these tests really still important? So for years, there has been a policy in place at many colleges called test optional. And the idea was, if I was a really good high school student, definitely moving toward college, and I was taking the right kinds of classes, and I was doing, good stuff to develop myself as a human, and I had extracurriculars, and I was writing my good essay, and I was building a nice application. But I took the ACT or SAT, and darn it, every time I took it, my score did not align with my other application components. It stuck out negatively. Test optional was a way that colleges said, we still want you to apply, just leave out that test score. We will judge your application on all the other components, right? So all those other components became a little bit more important, and that student was, it got a spot in this college or didn't get a spot in college. So COVID came, and it made it very difficult for students, if not impossible, to take the ACT or the SAT. So in March of 2020, it didn't impact that year as much as it did the class of 2021. Those kids, on the whole, maybe could not take the ACT or SAT in the normal fashion. Those colleges still needed those kids to apply, and so many other colleges turned on test optional policies that never had a test optional policy before. But it got tricky. Even some majors inside of a college that had a policy would still say, we want you to submit a test score. So it became very confusing, murky data and details about how many students were getting in that hadn't submitted a score versus those that had submitted a score. And so families are like, what do we do? So here's the answer. Here's the answer. Today, I will tell you, possessing a strong test score will benefit your student through these years of high school as they move toward a college admissions process. Possessing a strong score will benefit them. Will test optional still remain? How many students will actually apply test optional? How many will be admitted test optional? No one can say. There's very little data about that. But if your student has a strong score, submits that score, it will be received by the college and used as part of their body of their application. Does that make sense? We're good. Okay. So, test prep. Won't colleges see my score? You have an 8th grader. If you want them to engage with these tests just for practice, just to rip the wrapping paper off of it, you can do that. Nothing stops you from doing that when your student is ready to do that. I did that with both of my kids. They had early experiences with the tests. My daughter, her very funny questions were, can I bring candy? Can I bring my phone? And where are we going to lunch when you pick me up and I'm all done? And I'm like, yes, those are exactly the questions, right? It was not about how she scored. It was just about getting that early experience with the tests, because so much of the stress comes from a student not knowing what that test is like. So if you have a kiddo that will benefit from that, consider doing that. I don't think there's any prep that would be necessary at all, just to go in, make sure that you're taking the right things, like my daughter was worried about, can I bring the candy? What kind of pencil should I have? What kind of calculator? That's it. Will colleges see the scores if my kid takes it early? No. I heard kids take it for free. Yes, state of Ohio, your tax dollars pay for one sitting. This year it's going to be in early March for all juniors. If that's the first time your child experiences the test in March of junior year, in my opinion, that's pretty late in the game. So you'll just want to scooch forward the experience with the test sometime prior to that, so that you have the runway to then respond to how that student does in the earlier times that they take the test. What if my kiddo doesn't test well? Can my kiddo access accommodations? If my kiddo doesn't test well, that's exactly what test optional was built for. Can my kiddo access accommodations on the ACT or SAT? Yes, they can. If they have accommodations afforded to them through their IEP or 504, yes, they can apply to have those same accommodations on the ACT or SAT. It just takes a little bit of time to get that worked out. Okay, I'm doing okay on that? Everybody's like, do not ask for any questions because I want to leave. Oh, we got one here. Okay, yes, one. How about one quick?
You mentioned about the ACT, SAT in the earlier year. Is PSAT the same as that?
So is the PSAT the same as the SAT or the ACT? Great question. The PSAT is a preliminary SAT. So it is a shortened version of the real SAT test. It is used primarily for purposes of national merit scholarship qualification. They also collect data about your student and begin marketing to them. No college ever sees the PSAT data. It is a preliminary or practice SAT, shortened version of the SAT. Okay, great question. Yep, one more, and then I'm gonna hit this, and then we're gonna get out of here. Yes.
My son already took the ACT, and
One more time.
Oh, my son already took the ACT, and I signed him up to take another one, so he can hopefully improve the score. But they asked me about whether or not he should super score this one. I chose yes, but I wasn't sure if I did the right thing.
Can I handle the super score question with you privately, offline? Will you come down and we'll do that?
Absolutely.
And if you want to run screaming from your room, just tomorrow I will send in that testing overview. We write all about super scoring, how that works, what it means. So you can take your pick. Okay, awesome. All right, so as we think of the future, I want you to remember your child's formal education.
So
Yes.
I missed something you said earlier about planning for that try to distribute equally the necessary courses for the necessary classes for graduation, smoothing them out. You said something about that earlier, I guess. About not to load them all in the first year.
I probably said the opposite about front-end loading. So most students will try to put when they build out their first 2 years, they're taking as many of their required classes in their freshman and sophomore year as they can to get lots of check marks for those required classes. And of course, you really wouldn't take 2 Englishes in 1 year, but you can take your 1 English both years, 1 math both years, 1 science both years, 1 social studies both years, some of your electives, some of your art, some of your health, some of your PE. By doing that in the freshman and sophomore year, it frees up the space in that child's day, junior and senior year, to take what they want to take. Good? Does that?
To follow on that, so in the junior year, you will do all the important classes to compete for college because, and in the junior year, you will take all the classes that are important to get into college because only the first 3 years that count, right? The fourth year doesn't get into the college application. So what do you actually do in the first year?
Well, no, are you saying the 4th year? What do you do in the 4th year? Okay, so think of all 4 years as being important academically. It's not like they're going to suddenly, senior year, do nothing in their senior year. They're going to continue that path of taking challenging and appropriate coursework in the senior year. And believe it or not, the classes that they take as a senior, that does get etched onto their college application. You tell colleges what classes I'm taking as a senior. You just don't have any grades for them because you're applying in the fall of junior year or senior year. So you don't have any grades for those senior classes, but you tell them. And if you said as a senior, if I've taken all these wonderful challenging courses in my first 3 years, and then I write on my application, I am taking food for fitness, underwire basket weaving, late arrival 2. That would not look good, right? So you want to continue that trajectory of the type of classes you've taken in the first 3 years. Senior year is important. Great question. Okay, so your kids are going to exit. Yes?
Just super sort of quick. The meet whatever night at Jerome is the 27th, and there's a webinar that night too. Are those webinars recorded?
They are all recorded, and they are all sent, and the link to the recording is sent. So the question was, are the webinars that we do recorded? Everyone is recorded. Every recording is sent, along with all of the extra information that's associated that we talk about the next morning by email. Good?
Yep.
And I would recommend that you, when you play back our webinars, you've listened to me tonight, There is a speed button. You can speed it up a little bit. I sound just a little bit like a chipmunk, but it goes a little bit faster. So, okay? Okay. So your kid is going to get off the education train at some point, and they're going to go to work. They're going to exit that highway, and they're going to go to work. They may do that after 12th grade. They may do that after some sort of post-secondary, and I didn't put in there some of the 2-year degree programs that exist for our kids. They can get a 2-year program, a 4-year program. Sometimes the thing they want to do requires them to go to graduate school. So they'll get off this train and go to work. Is college really required? It has to be asked. I said it before. There are no guarantees, and it is a huge financial commitment. Christy, how many kids do you have?
Of my own?
2, 3?
Yeah, 2.
Of my own. Did you borrow some other ones? Christy's got 2 kids. I've got 2 kids. Does anybody have more than this many kids? Okay, good. So nobody puts up 2 hands. So do you know college costs a lot? Costs a lot of money. And you start to ask questions like, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Right? So you've got to ask your student the question, why does anybody go to college? And they all tell me to get a better job or something like that. So to Christy's point, thinking about jobs, thinking about career paths, thinking about career clusters, it's critical. Using these years of high school to really engage with those things that are interesting to them is very important. And without intervention, they really don't know much about careers at all. They know kind of what a doctor and a lawyer, kind of, because they watch, okay, wait, they know, the forensic science ones, they all watch all those programs, and they all believe that is how forensic science, right? Forensic scientists, if you ever talk to one, they hate those shows. They hate those shows because it doesn't paint a real version of what that job is like. And it's really created a challenge for them. So they have very little sense of real world jobs, and that's got to get fixed, and it can happen through the support of what Christy Benny is doing, what you will do at home. We help students as well in that regard. Electives, career academies, summer programs, self-assessment work, helping your student really take stock of who they are, what's important to them, what their strengths are. Desired lifestyle, we love talking to students about that. They have no idea what salary is or how much it takes to live the way they want to live, but they can articulate to you how they want to live. Does that job that I'm thinking of require a BS or a BA? Does it require more? Are credentials and certifications really more important to being a stenographer, for example? Those things are important. So what comes after high school? I want you to just be aware there are lots of options. Certainly they can go to a traditional 4-year college. They can do a specialized program and a 2-year degree program, work and school combination. They can head to the military. They can head straight to work. Conscious action, thought during high school is what will lead them to stronger, clearer, and more confident decisions. If the kiddo is heading to college, they've got to know their why. Why am I heading there? It will make the whole college process so much easier. Taking that rigorous coursework, getting involved, trying stuff out. I hope I've painted for you